Hi, I'm Steve Harvey, Executive Director of the Transcendental Politics Foundation. You know, I often want to believe that there is some perfect note that can be hit, some perfect combination of words and intonations, facial expressions, and gestures that can reach into someone and create an epiphany, perhaps even some perfect combination of notes and lyrics and rendition that can move someone to see truths that for some reason many of us simply choose not to see. And there's something to that, clearly, because we know when we hear a wonderful speech, soaring oratory, that the words and the rhythm and the rendition and the intonation and the truth of it just blows us away. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Had a Dream speech. Absolutely dazzling, and many people who listened to it then and ever since felt transformed by it. Or a song, a favorite song. It could be Joni Mitchell's Both Sides Now. It could be the Clannad's, the Irish group, the Clannad's rendition of Joni Mitchell's song Both Sides Now. It might be Kenny Rankin's acoustic guitar rendition of Blackbird, or Joe Cocker's raw rendition of With a Little Help from My Friends. Who knows? Or, the Magic Flute, Beethoven's Fifth, Vivaldi's Four Seasons. Whatever it is, whatever work of auditory or visual or verbal or literary art that just reaches into us and makes us go, wow, I see the world in a different way than I saw it before. I remember I saw The Killing Fields. I was actually in India at the time, and I watched The Killing Fields and felt transformed by that movie. And years later, watched Swimming to Cambodia, which referred back to The Killing Fields, which was just Spalding Gray, a guy talking for 90 minutes. And kind of storytelling and just really interesting, the rhythm of his voice and what he said and what his message was and what he was conveying. You could feel transformed by it. And I think one aspect of transcendental politics is finding those words, finding those intonations, those gestures, those notes, the combination of imagery that reaches into people and transforms them in those ways. This is a part of our mission, and we call that part of the mission metamessaging. We actually have a name for it. These messages that aren't just, because in politics, there's the concept of messaging, where you have a policy position that you're trying to convince people of, and you message, or you're a candidate in a campaign. Messaging is critical to your campaign. Meta-messaging goes beyond these individual issues or these individual elections and candidates. And it gets to the core values and emotional material, the visceral foundation that we're trying to cultivate and realize. This commitment to the disciplines of human consciousness, this commitment to the disciplines of human kindness, that if we somehow succeeded in creating marginal increases in a marginal number of people in their commitment to these disciplines, that would have enormous transformative effects and has in the past had enormous transformative effects. This is kind of the way social change and generational change occurs. We have these dominoes tumbling, and they're emotional and cognitive and behavioral, and they transform the social fabric. And one of the things we're trying to do in transcendental politics is transform the social fabric so that the balance between our defaults to righteous indignation, sort of tribally entrenched righteous indignation and antagonism to opposing ideological tribes, and confirmation bias and attribution bias. All of these kind of habitual defaults that are just so much a part of the human condition, and in a sense, always have been a part of the human condition, but we're aware of them. We know they exist. And we actually can, when we work at it, transcend them. And it takes work. But the payoff of that work in large numbers, the payoff of an increasing number of people making that investment and making some headway, just some headway, still being flawed, still falling back into old habits, still erring, still transgressing, but making a little headway. It doesn't take a huge shift for there to be huge implications for our shared humanity. And we've seen that throughout history again. We've seen huge shifts in perceptions about civil rights, about formerly oppressed and reviled categories of human beings. And within a generation, the narrative is, oh, it's horrible to have those attitudes. It's horrible to think that way about this formerly universally reviled group, universally by everyone but them, at least, you know? And we have this capacity to make these transformations in the zeitgeist. We're capable of doing it. So what is the combination of words? What is the combination of intonations? What is the combination of gestures? What is the combination of musical notes? What is the message that reaches into you and convinces you that it's worth it to actually try in earnest to challenge your own biases, to let go of your own false certainties, to find your kindness, your imagination, your empathy, your disciplined reason, your humility? What does it take for you to be triggered in those positive ways? And actually, that's not a rhetorical question. I would love some feedback. I'd love for people to think about it and think about, what would it take for you to undergo such an epiphany? And I think it's an epiphany we all should be seeking. And it's a series of small epiphanies. It's a reminder of epiphanies. It's a reaffirmation of old epiphanies. It's a rediscovery of things we once knew and forgot. So this is another side of transcendental politics. I've talked about the intellectual basis. I've talked about the framework, the positional versus principled politics. I've given it this lofty cerebral framework, but there's a visceral side to it as well. There's an emotional side to it as well. How do we excite one another about being better people and creating a better world? And this is the challenge that all human beings passionately engaged in the human endeavor are facing together. It's our shared endeavor. Let's give it some thought. Let's make great things happen. Have a great day. I look forward to talking with you again soon.